Hi, my name is Michael Smith, and let's address the elephant in the room. I am on a set. And the reason why is because we're working with a client doing a webinar, so I'm trying to use all the best stuff. Anyways, let's address the topic, which is should we legalize all drugs? The short answer is no, and the long answer is long, so I'll explain it. So, our country needs major reform before we can even consider the legalization of all drugs. I believe we are in a spot right now which would only be detrimental to all the citizens, the 320 million citizens of America, and possibly everywhere else. Now, everyone has their facts and counterpoints, and so do I, but what the proponent fails to mention is the legal and moral obligation that our country has and our government has to protecting its citizens. Now, in recent times, we haven't always done that, but it's still their job. And just allowing the legalization of all drugs without considering all of the ramifications is immoral, and it's doing a disservice to Americans everywhere. Now, my proponent quoted from prisonpolicy.org, police still makes over 1 million drug possession arrests each year, which many of them lead to prison sentences. Now, no one can deny the facts. This is something that is stated, and I can't say anything about it. But what lies in the details is extremely important, because this shows that we have a systemic problem that's more than just the legalization of all drugs can help. Now, if we legalize all drugs, it doesn't stop the government from caring about addicts and drugs. All it does is stops the criminalization of it. And it has its own merits, but I believe that there's better ways to do it. Now, let's first talk about the systemic problems. One of the problems that we have, and the biggest ones, is our rehabilitation centers. They're limited by a multitude of factors, one being funds, another one being just the laws, but that's a huge aspect of it, as well as we need mass education of drugs and addiction, as well as just funds and education in general. The next is prison reform, because like my proponent said, there is a problem with arrestees and people that are in prison for misdemeanors and all these things, and that they shouldn't be in prison for. And there's also a lack of just social programs such as testing, injection, and exchange centers to help out addicts in their time of need. They don't have enough of a safety net to really help them get back on their feet. Now, Portugal is a great example because they've made history in 2001 by decriminalizing all drugs. Now, the EU Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction, the report showed that drug-induced death rate has gone down 5 times lower than the EU average. HIV infection dropped from 104.2 million cases to 4.2 million cases in 2015. And then overall drug use has just gone down. But the drug dealers still go to prison. Instead, if you're caught with a 10-day supply or less, instead of going straight to prison, what happens is that you go into a local commission, which a lawyer, a doctor, as well as a social worker teaches you about treatment as well as other medical services that are available to you. But there's also penalties as well, which is fines or just local community service. And then if you are recommended to go into treatment, it's not forced. It's just heavily recommended. And a Time article about Portugal put it best. Portugal has shown that without spending significant sums, governments can give drug users the tools to put their lives back on track. But to do so, it'll have to stop treating them like criminals. In conclusion, Portugal is a great example. Now, I'm not going to say, let's decriminalize all drugs straight off, because I think there's other things that we should consider first. But legalization is definitely jumping the gun. We cannot just let 320 million Americans have access to these kind of drugs. It'd be detrimental to their health as well as the health of their families and potentially the world if it spreads. With proper rehabilitation as well as drug reform or prison reform, education on drugs and addiction, social programs, and a slower decriminalization of drugs, starting off with, let's go softer drugs and then we can go into really hard drugs, we can ensure that every American has the safety net of protection that they deserve. Every American deserves the right to make sure that they know that they live in a country that really cares for them. And we have so many different things and so many different problems that we face as Americans that we need to face before we can even talk about these kind of issues. But it still should be in the conversation. So, a long answer, I guess, just to sum it up, is no. But that's it. Thank you.